You have spent years perfecting the art of silent endurance. You wake up each morning, put on that practice smile, and tell yourself that struggling is noble, that waiting for your breakthrough shows character. You have become so skilled at managing disappointment that you wear it like armor, secretly proud of how much you can bear without breaking. But tonight, when the house grows quiet and you finally drop that mask, you feel the weight of every deferred dream pressing against your chest. You are tired of being the person who almost made it, who came close, who had potential. You are exhausted from living in the gap between what you know you are meant for and what you are settling for. What if I told you that every moment you have spent in that gap has been preparing you for this exact revelation? What if the very desperation you feel right now is not your enemy, but the doorway to a power so ancient and so precise that it moves the invisible forces of creation on your behalf? You are about to discover the decree of fulfilled faith, a practice so potent that it transforms you from someone who asks for miracles into someone who commands them. This is not about positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is about becoming a person who operates from such unshakable certainty that the universe reorganizes itself around your declaration. In the next few minutes, you will learn to speak the language that heaven recognizes, to think thoughts that magnetize divine intervention, and to walk in a frequency so pure that opportunities chase you instead of you chasing them. You will stop being someone who waits for God to move and become someone God moves through. This is your moment to step into the identity you were born to carry. If you are ready to stop surviving your life and start commanding it, subscribe now, because what you are about to receive will change everything about how you show up in this world. Number 1, starting from vulnerability and surrender. Close your eyes for a moment and travel back to that day when everything you believed about yourself came crashing down. You remember it, don't you? That moment when your carefully constructed world collapsed like a house of cards, when the ground beneath your feet turned to quicksand, when every door you tried to open slammed shut in your face. Perhaps it was the day you lost the job you thought would last forever, or when the person you loved most walked away, or when the diagnosis arrived like a thief in the night, stealing your sense of security. In that moment of devastation, you felt naked before the universe, stripped of all pretenses, all the masks you wore to convince yourself and others that you had it all figured out. The pain was so raw, so complete, that you questioned everything you thought you knew about life, about fairness, about God Himself. You stood at the edge of an abyss, feeling utterly alone, wondering if this was how your story would end. But here is the profound truth that most people never discover. That moment of absolute vulnerability was not your ending. It was your beginning. The fertile ground of miracles is not found in the comfort of certainty, but in the chaos of complete surrender. When you have nothing left to lose, you finally have everything to gain. Think of a seed buried deep in the dark earth. It must first surrender its form completely, must die to what it was, before it can become the magnificent tree it was destined to be. The darkness that surrounds it is not its enemy, but its womb. The pressure that weighs upon it is not meant to crush it, but to crack it open so that the life within can finally emerge. I once knew a man who built an empire from nothing, who commanded respect in boardrooms across the nation. But before any of that success came to pass, he found himself sleeping in his car, every possession gone, every relationship strained to the breaking point. On one particularly cold night, with his last dollar spent and his pride in tatters, he looked up at the stars through his cracked windshield and whispered the words that would change everything. I surrender. I cannot do this alone. In that moment of complete vulnerability, when he stopped fighting the current and allowed himself to be carried by forces greater than his understanding, the universe began to rearrange itself in his favor. This is where your true power begins to awaken, not in the illusion of control, but in the sacred act of surrender. Not when you have all the answers, but when you admit you know nothing at all. The divine does not move through the proud and self-sufficient. It flows through those who have been broken open, through those who have learned that strength is not about holding on, but about letting go. Your darkest hour was not punishment, it was preparation. Every tear you shed was watering the seeds of a future so magnificent that your current mind cannot even comprehend it. Every moment of despair was teaching you to reach beyond yourself, to tap into a source of power that operates beyond human limitation. When you find yourself in that place of vulnerability again, and you will remember this, you are not being destroyed, you are being prepared for resurrection. The very thing that feels like it is ending your story is actually the beginning of your greatest chapter. Embrace the breaking, welcome the uncertainty, for it is only when you have been emptied completely that you can be filled with something infinite. Number 2, the decree of fulfilled faith. You have been trained to beg. From childhood, you learn to ask politely, to hope humbly, to wish quietly for the things your heart desires. You learn to approach the divine like a servant approaching a king, hat in hand, voice trembling, ready to accept whatever scraps might fall from the royal table. But this posture of perpetual supplication is not just limiting your results, it is betraying your true nature. The universe does not respond to begging, it responds to commanding, not the demanding of a spoiled child, but the quiet, unshakable declaration of someone who understands their place in the cosmic order. You were not created to plead for your good, you were created to decree it into existence. There is an ancient principle hidden in plain sight, recorded in the sacred text of Mark chapter 11, verse 24. It does not say, believe that you will receive, or hope that you might get, or ask nicely and maybe. It says, believe that you have received. Past tense, already done. Accomplished fact. This is the decree of fulfilled faith, and it changes everything about how you approach your desires. Picture a radio that exists in perfect silence until you turn the dial to the exact frequency of your chosen station. The music was always there, broadcasting through the air around you, but you could not hear it until you aligned your receiver with its transmission. Your decree of fulfilled faith is that dial, perfectly tuned to the frequency where your blessing already exists in the infinite field of possibility. When you say, I am grateful that my financial abundance is flowing to me now, you are not lying to yourself or engaging in wishful thinking. You are making a statement of spiritual fact. In the realm where all possibilities exist simultaneously, your prosperity is as real as your current circumstances. Your decree is the bridge that allows that reality to cross over into your physical experience. I remember standing in the office of a man who had just lost everything in the great financial collapse. His business was gone, his reputation in ruins, his bank accounts empty. But instead of wallowing in despair, he stood before his bathroom mirror each morning and declared with unwavering certainty, I am grateful that my comeback is complete. I am grateful that abundance flows through me like a river. I am grateful that I am a magnet for extraordinary opportunities. His friends thought he had lost his mind. His family worried about his denial of reality. But 18 months later, he had not only recovered everything he had lost, but multiplied it 10 times over. The decree of fulfilled faith requires you to step out of time as you understand it. In the limited realm of physical reality, things happen in sequence. First you work, then you receive. First you sow, then you reap. But in the expanded realm of spiritual law, the harvest already exists in the seed. The oak tree is complete within the acorn, waiting only for the right conditions to manifest its fullness. Your decree is not an attempt to convince God to give you something he was previously withholding. It is an act of alignment with divine reality, where your good already exists in complete perfection. You are not trying to change God's mind. You are changing your own frequency to match what has always been available to you. When you speak your decree, let it flow from the deepest place of knowing within you, not from your mind, which is constantly calculating and doubting, but from your spirit, which remembers its divine nature. Speak it as a statement of what is, not what you hope might be. The universe is waiting for your command, not your request. It responds to certainty, not uncertainty, to faith, not fear, to the decree of someone who knows their true identity and claims their rightful inheritance. Number 3, strategic gratitude is defense against doubt. The moment you make your decree, they arrive like vultures circling wounded prey. The questions begin their assault on your faith. How is this going to happen? When will you see results? What if it doesn't work? These doubts slither into your consciousness disguised as reasonable concerns, as practical thinking, as healthy skepticism, but make no mistake about their true nature. They are assassins sent to murder your manifestation before it can take its first breath. Doubt is the gravity that keeps your dreams earthbound. It is the static that interferes with the divine frequency. It is the thief that steals your miracle while you sleep. And if you allow these questioning voices to set up permanent residence in your mind, they will systematically dismantle every decree you have ever made, leaving you exactly where you started, convinced that this spiritual stuff doesn't really work for people like you. But there is a weapon so powerful, so devastatingly effective against the forces of doubt, that it can turn your mind from a battlefield into a sanctuary. This weapon is strategic gratitude, and it works not by fighting doubt directly, but by starving it of the attention it needs to survive. Strategic gratitude is not the casual thank you you mumble when something good happens. It is the deliberate, methodical practice of excavating evidence from your past that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that the divine has moved in your life before and therefore will move again. It is building an unshakable foundation of proof that silences every whisper of uncertainty. Think of your mind as a courtroom where doubt stands as the prosecutor, presenting evidence that your dreams are impossible, that good things don't happen to people like you, that you're fooling yourself if you think this time will be different. Strategic gratitude is your defense attorney, and its job is to present such overwhelming evidence of God's previous faithfulness that the case against your miracle is dismissed before it can gain momentum. Take out a journal tonight and become a detective of divine intervention in your own life. Remember the job that appeared just when your savings ran out. Recall the relationship that healed after you thought it was destroyed forever. Think about the time you found exactly what you needed in the most unexpected place. Write down every instance you can remember when the impossible became possible, when doors opened that you didn't even know existed, when help arrived from sources you couldn't have predicted. A woman I knew was facing foreclosure on her home, with no visible means of saving it. Every morning, instead of rehearsing her fears, she would sit with her gratitude journal and read aloud the stories of 27 previous times when financial solutions had appeared in her life, seemingly out of nowhere. A tax refund that arrived just when she needed it. A side job that materialized through a chance conversation. A gift from a relative she hadn't spoken to in years. By the time she finished reading, her doubt had been replaced by an unshakable knowing that help was already on its way. 3 weeks later, a company she had never heard of called to inform her that she was the beneficiary of an old insurance policy that had been forgotten in the transfer of corporate assets. The amount was exactly enough to save her home with money left over. This is the power of strategic gratitude. It doesn't just make you feel better. It rewrites the story your subconscious mind tells about who you are and what's possible for you. It transforms you from someone who hopes good things might happen into someone who knows they always do. Your gratitude is not passive appreciation. It is active warfare against the forces that would keep you small. Every time you recall a previous victory, you are building spiritual muscle memory. You are training your mind to expect miracles rather than disasters. You are creating an unbreachable fortress of faith where doubt cannot survive. Number 4, intelligent surrender to defeat anxiety. Your greatest enemy is not doubt. It is not fear. It is not even the external circumstances that seem to conspire against your dreams. Your greatest enemy is the desperate need to control outcomes, the obsessive grip you maintain on the steering wheel of your life, white knuckles straining as you try to force the universe to bend to your timeline, your methods, your limited understanding of how things should unfold. This controlling instinct feels noble, even necessary. After all, you reason, if you don't take charge of your life, who will? If you don't plan every step, anticipate every obstacle, prepare for every contingency, how can you possibly succeed? But this very mindset that promises security is actually the source of your deepest anxiety. It is the prison that keeps you trapped in cycles of frustration and disappointment. Anxiety is born in the gap between your desire to control and your actual ability to control. Every time you try to micromanage the universe, you create tension. Every time you demand that your good arrive according to your schedule, through your preferred methods, packaged in the exact form you expect, you resist the very flow that is trying to bring you what you need. Intelligent surrender is not giving up. It is not passive resignation or spiritual laziness. It is the most sophisticated form of faith, the recognition that there is an intelligence operating in your life far superior to your conscious mind, and that your job is not to run the show, but to cooperate with forces that can see the entire chessboard while you can only see the piece you're holding. Imagine a master chess player competing against a computer that can calculate 10 million moves per second. The wise player doesn't try to outcalculate the computer. Instead, he learns to recognize patterns, to feel the flow of the game, to make moves that feel right even when he cannot see exactly where they lead. This is intelligent surrender in action. I once watched a brilliant entrepreneur drive himself to the edge of a nervous breakdown trying to force his vision into reality. He had spreadsheets tracking every metric, contingency plans for every possible scenario, backup plans for his backup plans. But the harder he pushed, the more obstacles appeared. The more he tried to control, the more chaotic his life became. Finally, exhausted and defeated, he sat in his empty office one night and spoke these words aloud: "I surrender the how and the when. I keep the what and the why." Within 6 months, his business had not only recovered but had attracted investors he never could have reached through his own networking. Opportunities appeared that he never could have planned for. Solutions emerged that he never could have designed. The moment he stopped trying to be the universe's general manager, the universe began to work on his behalf with an efficiency that astounded him. Intelligent surrender means you continue to take action, but you release your death grip on specific outcomes. You plant seeds with intention, but trust the soil, the rain, and the sun to do their invisible work. You send out your resume, but remain open to the possibility that your breakthrough might come through a conversation at a coffee shop. You work toward your goal, but stay flexible about the path that leads there. When anxiety begins to rise, when the controlling mind starts its familiar chatter about all the things that could go wrong, all the variables you cannot account for, all the ways your plan could fail, pause and breathe these words. I trust the process that is unfolding in my life. I do my part and allow the universe to do its part. I walk forward with faith that the next step will appear. Your peace does not depend on knowing how your story ends. It depends on trusting the author who is writing it. Release your desperate need to see the entire staircase. You only need enough light for the next step. The universe has been choreographing miracles long before you were born, and it knows exactly how to deliver yours in perfect timing, through perfect channels, in perfect ways that will exceed your highest expectations. Number 5, inspired action, embodying faith. Faith without action is a beautiful statue with no life flowing through its veins. It may be admired for its craftsmanship, discussed for its symbolism, but it cannot move mountains because it cannot move at all. True faith demands expression. It requires you to step into the physical world and become a participant in your own miracle, rather than a passive observer waiting for divine intervention to happen to you. But here is where most people stumble. They confuse frantic activity with inspired action. They believe that the harder they struggle, the faster they run, the more they force and push and manipulate their circumstances, the more they prove their faith to the universe. This is not faith in action. This is fear dressed up as productivity, anxiety masquerading as dedication. Inspired action flows from a completely different source. It emerges not from the desperate mind that calculates and schemes, but from the peaceful heart that knows and trusts. It comes as gentle whispers, sudden insights, quiet knowings that arise when you are still enough to hear them. These actions may appear small to the outside world, almost insignificant, but they carry within them the full power of divine orchestration. The phone call you feel prompted to make to someone you haven't spoken to in years. The book that keeps coming to mind, urging you to read it today. The sudden impulse to forgive someone who hurt you long ago. The idea that pops into your head during your morning shower. The stranger you feel drawn to help at the grocery store. These are not random thoughts or coincidental urges. They are invitations from the universe to step into the flow of your unfolding miracle. I remember a young woman who had been unemployed for months, applying to dozens of companies with no success. One afternoon, while walking through a park feeling particularly discouraged, she noticed an elderly man struggling to carry his grocery bags. Something inside her said simply, "Help him." It wasn't logical. It wouldn't advance her job search. It had nothing to do with her career goals. But the feeling was so strong that she couldn't ignore it. As she helped him to his car, they struck up a conversation. He mentioned that he owned a small publishing company and had been looking for someone with her exact skills for weeks, but couldn't find the right person through traditional hiring methods. By the time they finished loading his groceries, she had not only found her dream job, but had met the mentor who would shape the next decade of her professional life. This is how the universe works through inspired action. It doesn't always make sense to the logical mind. It doesn't follow the conventional wisdom about networking and strategy and 5-year plans. It operates through synchronicity, through seemingly random encounters that are anything but random, through small steps that lead to giant leaps. The key is learning to distinguish between the voice of inspiration and the voice of desperation. Desperate action feels heavy, forced, driven by the fear that if you don't make something happen right now, nothing ever will. Inspired action feels light, natural, accompanied by a sense of rightness, even when you cannot see where it leads. Desperate action asks, "What can I do to force this outcome?" Inspired action asks, "What is mine to do today?" Desperate action comes from a place of lack, trying to grab and hold and manipulate what you need. Inspired action comes from a place of abundance, trusting that as you follow the breadcrumbs of intuition, you are being led towards something greater than you could have planned for yourself. Today, pay attention to the gentle promptings that arise in the quiet moments between your busy thoughts. Notice the people you feel drawn to call, the places you feel drawn to visit, the actions you feel drawn to take that have nothing to do with your logical strategy, but everything to do with your spiritual alignment. Your faith becomes real the moment you act on it. Every inspired step you take is a vote of confidence in the invisible forces that are working on your behalf. You are not just believing in your miracle. You are participating in its creation. Number 6, spiritual shielding and frequency management. Your mind is the most sophisticated antenna ever created, capable of receiving signals from frequencies that span from the depths of fear to the heights of divine love. But here's what they never taught you. You are not a passive receiver of whatever signal happens to be broadcasting the loudest. You are the programmer of your own reception, the guardian of your own frequency, the gatekeeper who decides which voices get access to your consciousness and which ones are turned away at the door. Every moment of every day, you are being bombarded with signals designed to pull you down into the frequency of lack, limitation, and fear. The news feeds that profit from your anxiety. The social media streams that make you feel inadequate by comparison. The conversations with people who have made complaining their primary form of communication. The advertisements that whisper lies about what you need to be happy. The internal critic that rehearses every reason why your dreams are impossible. These are not neutral influences. They are frequency hijackers, actively working to retune your antenna away from the divine channel where your miracles are being broadcast. Every time you allow yourself to be pulled into the vortex of negativity, worry, and doubt, you literally change the signal your mind can receive. You go from being tuned in to possibility and power to being tuned in to problems and powerlessness. But you have more control over this process than you realize. Your attention is your remote control, and you can choose which channel to watch. Your thoughts are your programming code, and you can decide which thoughts to amplify and which ones to delete. Your daily habits are your frequency settings, and you can design routines that keep you locked onto the divine signal no matter what chaos is swirling around you. This is why the first hour of your day is sacred territory that must be protected at all costs. The thoughts you think, the words you speak, the energy you cultivate in those precious morning moments set the frequency for everything that follows. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone to see what catastrophes have unfolded while you slept, instead of diving headfirst into the anxiety soup of the news cycle, you must claim this time for frequency alignment. Begin each day with declarations that reprogram your antenna to receive abundance rather than lack. Today I am a magnet for divine opportunities. Today I walk in perfect alignment with my highest good. Today I am surrounded by love, guided by wisdom, and protected by grace. These are not empty affirmations. They are frequency adjustments, tuning your consciousness to the channel where your blessings are already being transmitted. I knew a successful businessman who noticed that his most challenging days always followed mornings when he started by checking his phone. The market reports, the political drama, the urgent emails demanding his attention would immediately pull him into a reactive state that colored every interaction for the rest of the day. So, he instituted what he called his sacred silence protocol. No phone, no news, no external input for the first hour after waking. Instead, he spent that time in gratitude, in meditation, in reading inspirational material that lifted his frequency rather than lowering it. The change was immediate and dramatic. Not only did he feel more peaceful and centered, but opportunities began flowing to him with an ease that amazed even his closest associates. He attracted clients who had been impossible to reach, partnerships that seemed to form effortlessly, solutions that appeared just when he needed them most. Your spiritual shielding extends beyond your morning routine to every choice you make about what you allow into your consciousness throughout the day. The conversations you participate in, the media you consume, the environments you spend time in, the people you choose to surround yourself with, all of these are either raising your frequency or lowering it, either supporting your faith or undermining it. You must become fiercely protective of your mental and emotional space. This doesn't mean you avoid all challenges or pretend problems don't exist. It means you approach everything from a position of strength rather than fear, solution rather than fixation on the problem, faith rather than doubt. When someone tries to pull you into gossip, you politely redirect the conversation. When the news tries to convince you that the world is falling apart, you remember that divine order underlies all apparent chaos. When your own mind tries to rehearse worst-case scenarios, you interrupt the broadcast and return to your chosen frequency of faith, gratitude, and expectancy. Your frequency determines your future. Guard it like the treasure it is. Number 7, the full cycle of divine manifestation. You now possess the complete blueprint for divine manifestation, the sacred sequence that transforms desires from invisible longings into tangible reality. But this is not merely a technique to acquire what you want. This is a pathway to becoming who you were always meant to be. This is the difference between temporary success and permanent transformation, between getting lucky once and living in constant alignment with divine flow. The cycle is elegant in its simplicity, yet profound in its power. Decree, gratitude, surrender, inspired, action, frequency, protection. Each element builds upon the previous one, creating a momentum that becomes unstoppable, a spiritual physics that operates with mathematical precision. You begin with the decree of fulfilled faith, speaking your reality into existence from the place of knowing rather than hoping. This is not wishful thinking, but divine ordering, aligning your consciousness with the truth that your good already exists in the infinite field of possibility, waiting only for your recognition to call it forth. Then comes strategic gratitude, the evidence that builds unshakable faith by proving that the divine has moved in your life before and will move again. This is not casual appreciation, but deliberate warfare against doubt, systematically destroying every argument that suggests your miracle is impossible. Next is intelligent surrender, releasing the death grip of control and trusting the process that is larger than your understanding. This is not passive resignation, but sophisticated faith, recognizing that there is an intelligence operating in your life that can see moves you cannot calculate, paths you cannot plan, solutions you cannot design. From this place of trust comes inspired action, the physical expression of your faith that moves you from observer to participant in your own miracle. These are not desperate attempts to force outcomes, but gentle responses to divine guidance, small steps that carry the full power of cosmic orchestration. Finally, frequency protection, the daily practice of guarding your consciousness against the voices that would retune your antenna away from the divine channel. This is recognizing that your mind is sacred territory. Your attention is your most valuable currency, and your thoughts create the atmosphere in which your miracles can either flourish or suffocate. But here is what separates those who occasionally experience manifestation from those who live in permanent alignment with divine abundance: consistency. This is not a technique you use when you are desperate and abandon when things improve. This is a way of being, a spiritual discipline, a daily practice that becomes as natural as breathing. I have watched people transform their entire existence by committing to this cycle, not just when they needed something, but especially when they didn't. They decree abundance while they are already abundant. They practice gratitude while blessings are flowing. They surrender while they are winning. They take inspired action while they are succeeding. They protect their frequency while life is going perfectly. This is how you become someone who can sustain divine blessings rather than someone who attracts them briefly only to lose them through spiritual negligence. This is how you evolve from someone who experiences occasional miracles to someone who lives in the miraculous as their natural state. You were not designed for scarcity. You were not created to beg for crumbs from a universe of abundance. You were not meant to live in the gap between what you need and what you have, constantly searching for the missing piece that will finally make you complete. You are not a cosmic accident struggling to survive in a hostile universe. You are a divine being having a human experience, and the kingdom of heaven is not a distant destination but a present reality within you, waiting to be expressed through you, longing to manifest as you. Your role is not to convince God to bless you, but to align yourself with the blessings that are already yours, not to earn divine favor, but to accept the divine inheritance that has been waiting for your recognition since before you were born. The future is not something that happens to you. It is something that flows through you when you become a clear channel for divine expression. Your dreams are not random fantasies, but glimpses of the reality that exists for you in the realm of infinite possibility. Your deepest desires are not selfish wants, but divine assignments, callings placed within you to draw you toward the fullness of who you are meant to become. Step into this truth. Live this cycle. Become this reality. The universe is waiting for you to remember who you are. Right now, as these words reach your consciousness, something profound is shifting within you. You can feel it, can't you? That quiet stirring in the depths of your being, that gentle awakening of a power that has been sleeping, waiting for this moment of recognition. You are no longer the same person who began this journey. The ancient masters spoke of moments like this, when understanding moves from the mind into the marrow of your bones, when wisdom stops being something you know and becomes something you are. You have tasted the frequency of divine alignment, and your spiritual palate will never again be satisfied with the stale bread of limitation and lack. Picture a lighthouse standing tall against the darkness, its beam cutting through the fog with unwavering certainty. The light does not struggle to penetrate the darkness. It simply shines, and the darkness has no choice but to retreat. You have become that lighthouse. But here is the beautiful truth that is just beginning to dawn on you. This is not the end of your awakening. This is the first sunrise of a new day that will never end. Every morning you will rise with deeper understanding. Every moment will offer you new opportunities to practice the divine alchemy you have learned. If this resonates in the depths of your soul, then you belong in this community of conscious creators. Subscribe now and join thousands who have chosen to live from the frequency of faith rather than fear, who have decided to claim their divine inheritance rather than settle for spiritual poverty. What you have discovered is not just a technique. It is your spiritual DNA, finally expressing itself after years of dormancy. You are stepping into the fullness of who you have always been, remembering what you have always known. The kingdom of heaven is not coming. It is here, now, within you, as you, expressing through every breath you take. You are the living proof that divine power moves through human vessels, that heaven and earth meet in the consciousness of those who dare to believe.